The San Antonio Spurs, as we know it, are one of the most successful franchises in NBA history. Before we knew them today as a young and talented but inexperienced bottom-tier team, in the years of 1999 to 2014, the Spurs went to either the NBA Finals or the Conference Finals a total of 8 times, and came on top at the Finals 5 times. This success can be thanks to having two of the best European players to ever play the game, in Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili. Arguably one of the greatest coaches of all time, Greg Popovich, and maybe the greatest power forward to ever play the game, Tim Duncan. But the one thing that seemed to go over everyone's head is that all of that almost never even happened. Drafted back in 1997, it only took Tim Duncan 2 years in the 1999 lockout season to win his first NBA championship. Now with the championship under his belt, Duncan was now considered to be a top player in the league, and many were excited to see what he had in store with his new team. But while everyone were trying to figure out the future for Tim and the Spurs, Duncan was quietly planning his exit. Back in 1999, Tim Duncan's rookie contract was about to end, and with the Spurs roster having an average age of almost 30 years old, and David Robinson now turning 34, added with his long history of back injuries, it was clear that their team wasn't going to last long, and Tim decided to explore free agency. And while Duncan was exploring free agency, there would be a new super team starting to brew in Orlando. Down in Toronto, Canada, there would be a cousin duo that consisted of Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady. In the year 2000, Vince Carter had his breakout season, scoring a career-best 27 points per game. Tracy would also come along holding his own, scoring a decent 15 points per game. But although the two were a compatible duo, Vince and Tracy both played the same position. And since Vince was more of the superstar on the team, he would get more minutes, which caused Tracy to come off the bench, not getting the playing time he felt he deserved. So he decided to seek free agency and sign with the Magic. Over in Detroit, Grant Hill, who was once said to be the next Michael Jordan, is kind of forgotten about nowadays, and was thought to be a Detroit lifer. But in the 2000 NBA free agency, a controversial sign and trade deal saw Hill being shipped to Orlando in exchange for Ben Wallace and Chucky Atkins. A trade that would pay off 4 years later, with the Pistons winning a championship in 2004 against the Lakers. Doc Rivers would also be signed to the Magic as a coach, and in his first year took the Magic from a 33-17 record, which was in the 1999 lockout season, to a 41-41 record the next season. And this 8-win jump secured him to be awarded with the Coach of the Year trophy. So now with 2 perennial All-Stars and a Coach of the Year winner, there will be one more missing piece to the puzzle, and that would have been Tim Duncan himself. Orlando would then fly out Tim Duncan for various meetings on him joining the team. The promotion for this trade was probably one of the biggest ever, with the billboards of Tim Duncan in a Magic jersey all over Orlando, and even giving him VIP access to Disney World. The Magic even brought out Tiger Woods to talk with Tim Duncan at a party, so it's safe to say that the Magic went all in on Duncan. Everything seemed to be going as planned with Tim Duncan joining the Magic, but it would only take one question that ruined the whole process. See, the Magic would have a special team dinner that included Doc Rivers, coaches, team management, Grant Hill, and Tim Duncan. As everyone was eating and enjoying their dinner, Tim Duncan's then wife Amy Duncan asked one simple question. See, back with the Spurs, family members were allowed to travel with the team, although it wasn't as popular or even allowed like in today's NBA. So because of this, Tim's wife would ask Doc Rivers if wives were allowed to travel with the team, and he simply responded with no. Grant Hill, who was a part of this dinner, recalled this moment, saying it changed the whole energy at the table.
Not only have I heard that, I was there. I was on the same. I made my visit with Tim Duncan.
Okay.
And I was at the dinner when someone in Tim's entourage, I'll just leave it that way, asked Doc, can significant others travel on the plane? And Doc said no. And you could hold, like, it was just like the energy at the table.
With his wife even saying that he wasn't coming because of how his wife's body language changed with that one response. But this might have not been how the story actually went. because it wasn't until 6 years later we would finally hear this story from the perspective of Doc Rivers. And he said the real reason why Tim didn't choose to sign with the Magic.
And I remember calling the night that Tim left, and I said, hey, we got Duncan. He said, did he sign? I said, no, he's going back. He's going to talk to Orlando, back to San Antonio. And he said, well, you just lost him because you don't let the guy off campus, Doc. You can't let him off campus.
Also saying that the trio of Tracy McGrady, Grant Hill, and Tim Duncan was never even going to happen because they only could have taken 2 players.
But we can only take 2.
Yeah.
We could not create enough money for 3.
That's so funny because now as the years pass, I always thought it was the 3 together, but it's like becomes telephone where you remember it wrong.
Yeah.
After this, Tim would then leave to go back to San Antonio to have his last meeting with Greg Popovich and say his goodbyes to the Spurs. But allowing Duncan to go back and talk to his team would be the biggest mistake in Doc Rivers' career. With the possibility of losing Duncan to the Magic, Spurs center David Robinson cut short his summer vacation in Hawaii to join Popovich in the last meeting with Tim Duncan. In that meeting, Robinson reportedly pleaded with Duncan to stay, telling him that they can still win together in San Antonio while he still had a few years left before his back gave up. And the plead from David Robinson was all it took, because after this meeting, Duncan would have a change of heart and decided to re-sign with the San Antonio Spurs. But although the Spurs wouldn't win another championship with the Twin Towers, San Antonio would go on to draft players like Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili. And between the year 2000 to 2014, Tim Duncan would go on to be a 2-time MVP, 12-time All-Star, 4-time champion, and a 2-time Finals MVP. So it's safe to say, Tim made the right decision. But as for the Magic, things went a lot different. Although the signing of Tracy McGrady and Grant Hill sounded amazing at the time, today we now realize how underwhelming that will become. Because Grant Hill would suffer an ankle injury while on the Pistons that would negatively alter the rest of his career, only playing 4 games for the Magic in the 2000 season. On the other hand, although Tracy McGrady will go on to become a multiple-time All-Star and put up amazing numbers, that regular season success would never carry on over to the playoffs, with the Magic famously never making it out the first round under the leadership of McGrady. And with no major movements to the team, in the 2004 offseason, Tracy McGrady would leave the Magic due to him being tired of carrying the team, to then instead being traded to the Houston Rockets. Grant Hill will continue to fight injury throughout his career in Orlando and would later then leave the team in the 2000 offseason. And for the numerous stretch of years up until they got Dwight Howard in the 2004 draft, the Magic were a bottom seeding team. And after 3 seasons of mediocre regular season success, Doc Rivers began the 2003 to 2004 offseason with a record of 1-10 and would immediately get fired from the Magic at the beginning of the season. He would later then sign with the Boston Celtics, where he would go on to win 2 conference championships and win a single NBA Finals in the 2008 season. Tim Duncan and Greg Popovich look back now on the situation in a funny way, but back then it was very much less than funny, with Duncan saying he was close to leaving, and when asked how close, he replied with, real close. Greg Popovich can also be quoted saying, it was a nerve-wracking time. It was hell. You get close to a player and you don't want to see him leave. I never let myself believe he was going to stay. Also adding, he was preparing himself for sanity reasons. Although we have never got to hear the full story from Tim Duncan himself, it's just crazy to imagine if a prime Tim Duncan actually went on to sign with the Magic and form a team with prime Tracy McGrady and Grant Hill. That would have greatly affected the NBA we see today as a whole. The Spurs would have never been the successful team we know them as today, and Tracy McGrady might have actually had a ring. That trade might have impacted future draft picks as well. Would LeBron ever have went to Cleveland? Dwayne Wade might have never ended up a part of the Heat culture. Who would have been the team to draft Dwight Howard since the Magic already had top players? Honestly, this can go on forever, but all I can say is thank Tim Duncan for never making that decision.